What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we discuss the art, science, and business of comedy with comedians and comedian adjacent. With this episode's guest, Alan Katz. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, welcome to Done Way Past Funny, where we discuss the art, science, and business of comedy with comedians and comedian adjacent. I'm your host, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight. My guest today is Hollywood writer and producer Alan Katz. First of all, Alan, I want to thank you for doing this. And if you don't mind, before I start my questions and stuff, telling the people a little bit about yourself, because they may not know your face, but I'm sure they will know your work.
In my past, I wrote movies and TV shows like HBO's iconic Tales from the Crypt. In fact, yes, in fact, I co-created The Crypt Keeper.
Yes.
Before I got my hands on him, he was just the puppet, and I actually invented his personality that turned him into the franchise character. I've wrote and produced other things. Gosh, among my other movie and TV credits, Children of the Corn 2, Freddy's Nightmares, the Nightmare on Elm Street TV series, The Outer Limits. I spent a bunch of seasons on that show. And then I went into kind of a 2-decade-long writer's block, depression. And at the other end of that, when I bounced, I found myself in podcasting. And I found myself not just in podcasting, but at home in podcasting. And for me, even as I was trying to get myself back into film and TV, I found podcasting much more accessible. The thing that leapt out is, in order to take an idea from my head and turn it into a movie or a TV show, well, first of all, to get the script written, that's a couple years, really,
Right.
get a script written. And then to get the rest of the package figured out, it's 5 to 6 years of labor just to approach the executives who will decide whether or not to put it into the meat grinder. And then if you're lucky enough to get it into the meat grinder, well, what do you think comes out the other end of a meat grinder? It is sausage, guys. And
now I just want, because you mentioned the time frame now, and this is way out of order for me, but you did, I think Demon Knight came out in 1995. Bordello of Blood came out in 1996.
Yeah.
That's only a year. So there was a lot of like shorthand, I'm assuming. Seems like there's a lot of shorthand that was in Bordello of Blood. Like the script was already written, I guess. It just had to be tweaked, I suppose.
Well,
or
the reason, the fact that we made Bordello of Blood, the fact that we weren't supposed to make that as the second Crypt movie, we were supposed to make a whole other movie.
Yeah, Dead Easy.
Called Dead Easy.
Right.
But the fact that we made this other movie, Bordello of Blood, instead, a movie that we did not want to make, that, I would say that broke something inside of me. I think, the experience was soul crushing in every sense. I didn't realize how much it took 2 decades for the full ripple effects to finally stop rippling. But that was part of why I spent 2 decades searching for myself. And I'd been keeping a secret from myself for 45 years. The fact that when I was 14, I was sexually assaulted twice by the religious director at the synagogue where my family belonged, outside of in Pikesville, Maryland.
Yeah.
It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, was admit this to myself, that this happened to me. But it was only because I'd gone through really this terrible process, nearly hurt myself fatally. But then between the right medication and a very good therapist and copious amounts of THC, I I was able to confront the darkness head on. And
Now,
it is so true what they say about the truth setting you free. It was liberating to me, and it wasn't just telling my story to me. Well, once I could tell my story, I could tell my story to other people, but I suddenly bumped into a core truth. If you can't tell your own story to you, how can you really tell anyone else's story if you can't even tell your own?
but Bordello Blood brought upon that dry spell for you. But
Yeah,
before that, you had a passion project. Dead Easy was a passion project for yourself, and I guess
yeah,
was Gil Adler a part of that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Because
why did y'all ever think of going back to that passion project and rekindle that fire, get that magic back?
we didn't own it. The
Oh,
ownership was so complicated in terms of just acquiring the rights, and
oh,
then you're
okay.
revisiting the past. You know, once once we'd made Bordello, the die, the die was cast, and
It just seemed to me like if I had done a stinker, I would want to go back and do something that was not a stinker, just to show people, look, I really am, I'm better than that. You know? And so
but the
that's all
problem
occurred to
is,
me. Yeah.
but you know how the town is. What have you done for me lately? And after Bordello, you know, Bordello undermined the value of the franchise, of the whole
Okay.
Tales from the Crypt franchise. It was
Okay.
such a stupid thing to have done. And it happened because everyone took their eyes off the ball. All these creative people suddenly, I don't know, they stopped giving a fuck about the Tales from the Crypt franchise. And Joel valued, for instance, well, he valued his relationship with Sylvester Stallone over the Tales from the Crypt franchise. I can only imagine that was why he would cast Sly Stallone's girlfriend
Angie Everhart.
as the villain in our horror movie. Angie's a lovely person, really a terrific, a very good human being. But this was not a fair ask. Why would, if not for Sly Stallone approaching Joel in the set and going, "Hey Joel, I'm going to be shooting a movie in Vancouver. Put my girlfriend Angie in your movie. We can visit each other across the border." If he
Now
doesn't
just
do that, hey, we would have cast Robin Givens.
now
That's
for
who we
people who
wanted.
don't know, you said Joel, that would be Joel Silver.
Joel Silver. Yes, yes. I
Right, okay.
apologize.
No,
Joel Silver. One of my
I know because I do a little research, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, one of my executive producers, my executive producers on Tales from the Crypt, as they were on Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood, were four of the biggest movie producers, directors, writers. You know, Joel Silver. Joel is the 48 Hours, Die Hard, Predator, the Matrix movies. Uh, Dick Donner, The Omen,
Zemeckis,
Superman, Bob Zemeckis, as Forrest Gump, Back to the Future, and
William, was it
Walter Hill.
Walter Hill.
And Walter was 48 Hours and lots of incredible action movies. Walter's a real poet. You know, these four guys. What was the question I was answering?
Well, I was actually the reason why I brought up Bordello of Blood, because you were talking about how long it takes to make a movie and everything that
Oh,
goes into it, and I was just saying Bordello of Blood seems like it was done in about a year, and so because of that, I was thinking there were shortcuts or shorthand that was taken with Bordello of Blood outside of the normal chain of events with a regular movie.
the only shorthand, the only shortcut that had was we were handed a script 3 weeks before the start of principal photography. 3 weeks, and told
Now, this is the principle, just for people to follow along. You guys had already started making Dead Easy, right?
we
Dead
hadn't
Easy.
started filming it
You
yet, but
hadn't started filming, but
we
you
had
had
we had
locations.
we had developed the script for a year. It was a project that we all cared about deeply. We had done a tremendous amount of production design. Greg Melton had done wonderful production design. We knew what the world was going to look like. We had scouted locations in New Orleans. We were setting up shop in New Orleans.
Yep,
We were
you had the
casting.
talent. You had the talent
Yeah,
lined up.
I had already cast a young unknown actress named Salma Hayek to play the female lead. We were actively engaged, and 3 weeks before the start of principal photography, we were in New Orleans. Universal Pictures said, stop spending money, get on a plane, come home. We're not making that movie. And when we got back to Los Angeles, they stuck this script under our noses. They said, you're going to make this movie instead. It's called Bordello of Blood. And by the way, yeah, you still start in 3 weeks, guys. Your release date hasn't changed. Get going, make this movie instead. Now, where did Bordello come from? Well, at about this time, a new studio called DreamWorks had
Right.
happened. And DreamWorks was Steven Spielberg leaving his deal at Universal. He did not leave the lot, but he left his deal and set up shop and began making talent deals as a new studio should. And Universal was desperately afraid of losing another piece of talent. One of my executive producers, Bob Zemeckis, and they went to Bob and said, Bob, we love you at Universal. What can we do to make you stay? And I know one deal point. He stayed. So obviously the deal was good. But one of the deal points that made him stay was that Universal Pictures agreed to buy the first student script that Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the future Back to the Future guys, that they ever wrote when they were film school students at USC, a thing called Back to the Future, for $500,000. Maybe the highest paid student script ever.
No, you said Back to the Future. You meant Bordello of Blood? 'Cause that was what they bought, right?
They bought Bordello
$500,000.
of Blood, but this was the first script. Bordello of
Right.
Blood was the first script that the future Back to the Future
Right.
screenwriters ever wrote. This is the
Right.
first script they ever wrote together. It was called Bordello of Blood.
Now, you had misspoke. I was just trying to get you to clarify.
I apologize. Yeah,
No sweat. No sweat.
So, yes, the reasoning was, well, first of all, having spent $500,000. All right, so I guess Bob says yes, I'll stay, and then Universal begins thinking to itself, wait a minute, we're going to eat this $500,000. Wait a minute, Bob's about to start executive producing this other horror movie, this Dead Easy thing. That script cost us $50,000. Yeah, we'll take it out of their budget. Fuck that shit, it's gone. And so their attitude was, this is Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale's name on it. That's much bigger than Alan Katz and Gil Adler's name on this other Dead Easy script. And so it was a fait accompli. There was no development process. The assignment then was to rewrite a student script in 3 weeks while casting it, while designing it, while prepping it, while doing all that stuff. There was no time to rewrite the script. And it was an impossible assignment anyway. Hey, the main character in the movie, the hero, is a small town detective. Now, ask yourself, how much business can a detective really do in a small town? Not much.
His first job is to look for work.
Yeah, so what does he actually do in this small town?
Right.
So it's a character that doesn't actually exist anywhere except in the heads of film school students who've never lived in the world and have no idea how the fuck it really works. And so we are stuck right at the beginning with an impossible character to rewrite, because how do you just, when the actor comes to you on set and says, explain to me how this character works, honestly, I couldn't tell you, because this character doesn't exist in reality. So it's all bullshit. And so when you go to make a movie or do anything for the wrong reasons, which is the reason we were making this movie, for the wrong reason.
Right.
We went from making a movie that we all had a purpose. It was a purpose-driven movie. We really saw a career change. Dead Easy was a very different movie. It was a taut psychological thriller about a recovered memory. It took place in the swamps outside New Orleans. It had a wonderful villain, a great villain, a Harley Quinn character based on this recovered memory. Instead, we were doing a student movie with this really underwritten villain called Lilith. She was okay, but not a not nearly as interesting as the Harlequin. So
No,
we've written down to a terrible character, and if we had been able to cast her the way we wanted to, Gil and I wanted to cast Robin Gibbons as Lilith.
Right.
But those decisions were taken out of our hands. Joel insisted on casting our 3 leads, and that's how we got Dennis. That's how we got Erica Oleniak, and that's how we got Angie, because of what happened on the set that day in Seattle when Sly said, "Hey, put my girlfriend in a movie." And Joel,
I think he probably said, "Hey Joel, could you?" And I can't do my slide. I can't do my slide now. Why can't I do my slide Sylvester Stallone now?
oh, you can find it. You can find it. Your inner Sly is there. We all have an inner Sly. An inner bonehead. Well, instead of being a responsible executive producer and saying, "That's a great idea, Sly, but let me talk to the guys and see if it works for them," he said, "That's a great idea, Sly." Period.
Full stop.
Full stop.
The door is open.
Evening, boys.
The women are available.
We've been waiting for you.
But the price
Are you ready?
is non-negotiable.
At least now she'll know what's eating him. She is.
Welcome to the Bordello of Blood,
Lucy, I'm home.
where pleasure may be for sale,
Take off your clothes, worm.
You know, you make it sound really enticing.
but death is on the house.
My name is Rafe Gutman. Gutman Investigations.
My brother's been gone for days.
This is your brother? Wow. Same parents? Zeke, I'm looking for your friend Caleb. You seen him? I'm here for the Cunningham wake.
I'm afraid the wake is closed tonight.
If I don't grieve right now, maybe even grieve 2 or 3 times, I'm gonna go out of my mind, okay?
Universal Pictures presents Dennis Miller
We should split and get some really bad juju off this place.
in a new tale so sexy
Can I watch?
and so terrifying
Don't forget tasteful.
it could only come from the crypt.
Cha-ching.
Tales from the Crypt presents Bordello of Blood.
And so he cast the villain in our movie. In Demon Knight, the villain is played by Billy Zane, and he is wonderful. He's wonderful. He is, man. Hey, casting in a movie, casting in the theater, casting no matter where is 90% of your work.
Yeah.
You miscast, hey, then you're going to fight against the terrible choice you made forever and ever and ever, because the actor isn't saying it the way that it's supposed to be said. No, having cast a lot of actors in my film and TV career, I can tell you this in all honesty. I never ever cast an actor to act.
Right.
In fact, the last thing I ever wanted them to do was act, because the camera will see that and we'll have to cut it out.
Right.
I always cast actors to be as honestly emotional, as emotionally honest as they possibly can be, as emotionally naked as they can be. We'll give them a different name. We'll put some words in their mouth, but at those moments, they need to be genuine. I don't want them to act angry. I don't want them to act sad. I don't want them to act any of that shit. I want them to be those things. And that's what the camera sees. And so with Billy, Billy has a bit of a monster inside of him.
Yeah.
And so Billy's a great piece of casting.
You could hear it in his voice.
He's an actor. He's an egomaniacal actor, and that's just a piece of Billy's ego run amok.
Yeah,
it's monstrous. And it works great for the movie.
Universal Pictures is proud to present the motion picture directing debut of one of America's most talented and respected artists.
Cut! Cut, 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 cut! Oh, hello, kiddies. So glad you could join me. Your pal, the Crypt Keeper, has gone Hollywood in a big way. I'm directing my first feature film. Care for a little shriek preview? For my big scream premiere, I wanted lots of suspense. Special effects, sex, violence. The kind of thing you could really sink your teeth into. Frights, camera, action. It's about a chase through the ages, a race against time. The war between good and evil.
Come on out, everybody! It's time to play!
And the final battle between man...
I'm sorry.
and demon.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I lied.
It stars Billy Zane from Dead Calm, William Sadler from Die Hard 2, and Jada Pinkett from Menace to Society. Ooh, I love those titles. And you'll love Demon Knight.
The demons are here!
And ladies, if you think Demon Knight is too gross and yucky...
Whoa!
Thank you!
Well, Angie's a really nice person. She really is. She's lovely. There's nothing monstrous about Angie. And that's the problem. So when Angie goes to play a monster, she has to act like a monster. And so as hard as she works, and look, she has no experience doing any such thing. It's a ludicrous, unfair ask to say, hey, go be the centerpiece of the horror movie. Why would you do that to an actor? It's a lose-lose situation, which is exactly what it was.
I think to get that part, I think to get the monster out of her, you would have to go to her and say, before we do this scene, Angie, I just want you to know the only reason why you're getting this part is because Sylvester's about to break up with you, and this is your consolation prize. Action.
Yeah, Angie was such a lovely person. I'll tell you a story. Even after he broke up with her, which was 2/3 of the way through our movie, so that really for the last couple of weeks of the shoot, she was an emotional basket case. Her confidence was completely undermined, as you can imagine, because she thought this man loved her. And now this man, not only did he not love her, she suddenly became aware of the thing that we had all been aware of throughout the entire production up to that point, that he was fucking other people on his set. And doing it so publicly that the whole fucking front office knew about it, which is how our front office knew about it, because they were talking. Because Angie would go back and forth between sets. And so, they began to think badly of Sly on his set, and they felt even worse about Sly on my set because our entire front office was female, and man, they hated him. They hated him. They felt so badly for Angie, but we were all forced to keep Sly's secret. And Angie would cruise to the office, and that motherfucker made us all conspirators in hurting this woman. We betrayed her, and he made us complicit. And that is why I have no problem with Dennis was a difficult personality. It's just who he is. But
I know people who worked with him.
But Sly, I would use the word he's a pig, and he behaved like a pig, like an emotional pig, and he hurt. I would rather we had not cast Angie, but once we had cast Angie, she was my coworker. He really hurt my coworker emotionally. So, and yet Angie is such a good person that a couple weeks later, I had a weekend off. Now our weekends were Monday, Tuesday. Were Thursday, Friday, because Dennis was shooting his HBO series at the time, and
Right.
they rehearsed on Thursday, shot Friday. So our weekend became Thursday, Friday, which was not the deal our Canadian crew made, and that made them very upset with us. And they really hated Dennis because it's not like he said, "Guys, thank you for accommodating me." He was a prick toward them. So, everyone felt bad about it every which way.
And because also Dennis Miller really didn't want to do the movie. He just did it because they called his bluff. So it's like, how much money do you
Yes,
want to do
that's
this
exactly
movie?
right.
How much money do you want to do this movie? About $1 million. They'll never pay me $1 million. They're going to pay me
Yeah.
$1 million.
And we
Fuck.
said yes. And I cannot tell you. Joel said yes. We had $500,000 in the budget. Our audience didn't give a fuck about Dennis Miller. Our audience was there for special effects makeup and
Right.
gross out special effects. $500,000 in the budget for that part. We went to Universal, said, can we get some help here? Can we get a little breakage, $500,000 to help pay for this actor? And their attitude was, why are you paying Dennis Miller $1 million? That's $1 million more than anyone's ever paid him to be in a movie. What the fuck is wrong with you? No. And we don't care about Dennis Miller either. He's nothing to us. And so we took it. We were a $12 million movie. We took it out of our budget. And hey, where was all the money? Makeup, special effects. So we took it off the screen. We literally took away from what our audience was going to come to see, and we gave it to an actor they did not give a fuck about. Yeah. Why did Joel Silver make this deal without even consulting us and giving us a chance to beg him not to? I could not tell you to this day. I've never had this conversation with Joel, but that is what happened. And that's why Dennis. Dennis never wanted to do the movie, and to be fair, I told you that the character, talking about comedy. Well, all right. So it was supposed to be the character's supposed to be funny. Well, how do you write generic funny? You can't. Right. There's no such thing. And if you can't write from the character, from that particular point of view, what can you put there? So the writing assignment, rewrite this character, was impossible. I knew, when Dennis came to the set that first time, we had been shooting for 2 days already. So he was there. We started shooting on a Thursday, shot a Friday. And then we had the weekend to try to get Erica to get on a fucking airplane and get here. And then on Monday, Dennis arrived to be in wardrobe. And so he would work on Tuesday. And so when Dennis arrived, we were on location at a strip club in Vancouver. And I met Dennis for the first time. And actually, when I first met Dennis, I thought we were going to be cool because he said, "Hey, Katz." And he made a joke about an old character actor named, I'm going to go up on the name, aren't I? An old character actor. And I knew who the character, and I got the reference. And he went, "Katz." And then I said, "Well, all right, Dennis. So look, here's the latest version of the script that we just finished because Erica wanted some changes. But here's the script." And he opens it, turns to page 1. He looked at the first page where he appears, and he reads his first line of dialogue, and he closes the script. He says, "I'm not going to say that." He said, "I'm not going to say any of this." He said, "Look, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to improvise on my dialogue. I mean, I'll check it out with you first thing in the morning, but I'm just gonna go with the flow." Now, I know I'm not handing Dennis Miller, who is a professional comedian, who has his brand is being a comedian. He's a funny person. He's
a good wordsmith. He's a very
yes. And I know I'm not handing him Hamlet. You better keep to the script, asshole. And I know that whatever funny dialogue there is generic because I can't write from a character. There ain't no character on the page. So when Dennis says, "I'm going to improvise all my dialogue," I'm rather disempowered to do anything but say, "Yes, I guess you will be, Mr. Miller, sir."
Hi, I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Way Past Funny. You have just watched part 1 of our interview with Hollywood writer and producer Alan Katz. Please join us as we continue our interview, and when you come back to join us, bring a friend.
Bye.